Good. Good afternoon. In the interests of time.
I left my notes. I'm going to have to go back.
Okay. Left your notes. All right. You can do this without notes. Right.
You don't need notes, Jared.
All right, I'll do your part. No, hell no.
You haven't got notes there?
In the interest of time and appropriate humility, I'm going to say very little. So we will begin with the panel right away. You know who these folks are. Jared Diamond just left. He'll be right back. Niall Ferguson is to my immediate left. James Robinson, the far left. We will have two major questions, and then if there's time, we'd love to take some other questions from you, and we'll have some exchange among the panel. I wonder, I think we should probably just start in reverse order. Is that okay? We'll start with you. The first question is this. I'll tell you what the second question is, so you will stick around for sure. And the second question is, what about the U.S. and what about China? Are they on their way up? Or are they on their way down? How would you bet it? What would you say? The first question is this. From your work, from your extensive work, each of you, what would you say you have learned about the general pattern, if there is a general pattern, about the rise and fall of civilizations? What makes them succeed? What makes them fail? Niall Ferguson.
Well, thanks very much. It's a great pleasure to be back at the Milken Institute Global Conference, itself a hugely successful institution. I think most people that are sitting in this audience have in their minds a more or less cyclical theory of history, even if it's only a subconscious theory that, a little bit like people, nations or civilizations rise from their youth, they reach a zenith at about my age, and then it's all downhill. But it's a sort of arc. And one has conversations about this theory all the time. I've just come back from China, where the hot topic of the day is that the average dynasty in imperial China lasted about 300 years. And that's the time frame you should expect the People's Republic of China to last for. You also hear all the time, America is a young country. So people have a tendency to think about the life cycle of civilizations or of nations in those terms, as if they're human. I think this is completely wrong and not borne out by historical study. In reality, history is characterized by a great deal of non-linearity. Things can rise very suddenly and then exist apparently on a plateau and then fall off a cliff. Think of the history of the Soviet Union. And one of the ideas that I've been exploring in my recent work, it was there in the book Civilization, is the idea that nations and civilizations are complex systems in the strict sense of the term. They're complex, they appear to be in equilibrium, but they're always, in fact, adapting on the edge of chaos. And that means that really quite small perturbations can, under certain circumstances, cause the complex system to collapse. In other words, we shouldn't think of a life cycle of any complex organization in those terms. We should think not of cycles, but of these sorts of S-curves or exponential growth followed by collapse. This is, I think, a helpful insight because it should discourage the assumption that we don't really need to worry about certain problems because even if we are in some state of relative decline in the United States, it's a gradual glide path from the unipolar order to some different set of circumstances. I don't think that's right. I think the lesson of not only the Soviet experience, but more recently of the so-called Arab Spring, you might even say the lesson of the financial crisis is that complex institutions can collapse very suddenly. I know this is something that Jared has worked on. He even published a book called Collapse, which looked at the ways in which environmental problems can cause complex systems to collapse. So that, I suppose, is my short answer to the question, Bill. Don't look for smooth curves in history. You'll see them all the time in projections. That's not how history works. It's a lot of jagged lines. It's a lot of steep, precipitous falls.